What's happening, everyone? Steve here, Cars with Steve, and today I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know about the 2021 Ford EcoSport. Now, the EcoSport does have 4 available trim levels, 2 different engine choices. It's available front-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, so we're going to be going over everything you need to know about this vehicle. Before we dive into it, I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you from Marigold Ford for giving me access to this vehicle to shoot the video for you today. Check down in the description below for their contact details. And I also want to do a giveaway, so going to be giving away a few $20 gift cards to a restaurant that's local in your area. So somewhere in this video, I've hidden 2 different gift card codes. Search for them, find them, be the first person to message me on Instagram with that code, and you are going to be walking away with a gift card to a local restaurant of your choice. But let's dive into it, have a little bit of fun, and see what the 2021 EcoSport has to offer. Starting off looking at the exterior of the vehicle. So the EcoSport does have 4 available trim levels, and that's going to dictate some of the basic stylings, the fog lamps, as well as the tire. Because when we look at the S versus the SE and the SES, those are going to have 16-inch tires standard. We do have the option for the 17-inch tires, and then we're in the titanium, so it's going to have a 17-inch tire standard regardless. There are a few different rim choices that are available, again, depending on which package and which trim level of the vehicle you end up going for. But taking a look, it's got an interesting kind of molding for it. We've got a nice headlamp on there, fog lamps as well that are optional, and we've got a little body color molding along the bottom there that stretches across the entire side of the vehicle, both the driver and the passenger side. As we start to move into the back a little bit more, so that black molding really hits the bumper area there. And we do have 2 different drivetrains that are available in the EcoSport. It's either going to be front-wheel drive or a 4-wheel drive, so it's going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle that you're looking at. Now, the EcoSport, this specific one, doesn't have towing available, or towing on it, I should say, but towing is available, so we could look at a factory tow option. When we look at towing capacity inside of the EcoSport, the smaller 1-liter engine is going to tow up to 1,400 pounds, while the 2-liter naturally aspirated, so the non-turboed engine will be able to tow up to 2,000 pounds. Looking at some standard technology, so the backup camera is actually going to be standard, and that's going to be across every vehicle in North America as of 2018. We do have a reverse sensing system. Now, that sensing system is available on some trim levels, but we will have the blind spot system. So blind spot system lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, and then there also is a base lane keeping and lane centering system. Taking a peek underneath the hood, the EcoSport does have 2 available engine choices. Now, there's a 2-liter naturally aspirated, so non-turbo, and then there's a 1-liter turbocharged engine. The 1-liter turbo is going to be able to push out 123 horsepower and 125 pound-feet of torque, while the 2-liter naturally aspirated, so the one that we're looking at here, is going to push out 166 horsepower and 149 pound-feet of torque. So a little bit of power when it comes down to it. I would definitely, if you're going to be towing anything, would recommend looking at the 2-liter engine as an option instead. But taking a look underneath, we've got the option of easily checking our oil if we need to. We can easily top up a few fluids, and we've got easy access to our battery. Taking a peek at the key fob of the vehicle. So first thing to point out, along the very bottom, we do have our emergency access key, so we can easily gain access to the vehicle if for whatever reason our key fob's not working. Now, looking along the very top there, we've got our unlock and our lock button, as well as our panic or our horn alarm button. Now, this one obviously does not have the remote start system, and we do have the option of using our cell phone instead. So whether that's an Android or an iPhone, we can use the Ford Pass app in order to be able to remote start and a number of other things. Now, that is going to be standard across the entire trim level as well. Oh, I know that getting inside of the trunk of the EcoSport sometimes drives people mad, because where you typically go in order to find the latch, there's no latch. So if we actually take a look on the right side there, we've got a little cutout. So we're just going to put our fingers underneath. We're just going to press, and have a look at that. Slides out sideways instead. So a little bit different than what we might be used to. Let's have a little bit of a peek inside. So taking a look at the back here, we do have a privacy shade, and that shade is easily removable. So it's nice so that we can kind of hide things that might be underneath the vehicle. But if we need to remove it, all we're going to do is just hit it a couple of times. There we go, as you can see, easily pops out, and we can easily remove that as necessary. Right now, let's take a quick peek at the cargo dimensions. So as you can see there, we don't have a ton of width or depth to this vehicle, but it is nice to know that we've got some options when it comes down to it, because we've got a 60-40 split. So 60% driver, 40% passenger, so we can fold down one or the other if we need to. Now, with that second row folded down, take a peek at the difference in the cargo dimensions. So we do have the option of folding down either one side or the other, but one thing to note is that in the EcoSport as a default, as you can see, we've got a little bit of a lip here, so between the two. But one of the nice things about the EcoSport is that we've got this little tray that's removable, and we can adjust it as necessary. So we can put it down on 2 different levels. We put it down along the top level, lock that into place, and all of a sudden it's a little bit flatter. But the EcoSport also has something that's a little bit unique in how we can fold down that middle row. Let's hop around to the other side to find that out. Now, this is typically the way that most people would fold down the seat for the EcoSport, which, don't get me wrong, it is nice. But as you can see there, we've got that little bit of a lip. So in order to actually fold the seat down this way, all we're gonna do is press the button along the top. We press that button and the seat folds down. That's cool. But guess what? The EcoSport's got something a little bit unique. If we move down the seat a little bit, there's a tab, and that's gonna be on the driver and the passenger seat. So as you can see there, tab on both seats. All we're gonna do is take that tab, we're just gonna crank it up, and as you can see there, the seat itself is up. So now if we fold the seat down again, we press that tab, we fold down, all of a sudden, we're a little bit flatter. Now take a look at that difference. So when we go one side to the other, all of a sudden, we've got a little bit of a flatter fold when we fold the seats down this way instead. So we take that tray, we move it back up again, and all of a sudden, we've got something that's even flatter. So if you need that little bit of extra space, that's the way we're gonna fold the seats down to give you a couple extra inches, because those couple extra inches can matter. All right, now taking a peek along the back, so not too much to point out. So as you can see there, we do have that adjustable part for the tray. So we've got technically three different sections. We can have it on the top, the middle, or just flat along the bottom, or you can just completely remove it if you need to. But as you can see there, we've got another little tab. So if we crank that tab up, we've got a little inflator kit. So we've got the actual pump, we've got the goop, and then we've also got this little guy. Now that is a spigot that we're gonna use if we ever need to use a jerry can in order to fill up the vehicle. Now, unfortunately, we don't have an option of getting a mini spare tire from the factory. I think it was a 2018 model year. It was actually a little tire that would sit in the back of the vehicle. It kind of looked a little bit funky, but unfortunately, we don't have the option for that any longer inside of the EcoSport. Taking a peek at second row spacing. So I'm 6 feet tall. I've got the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall. I've got a teeny little bit of space for my knees and a tiny little bit of room for my feet. So it's not overly spacious. Now up overhead, with me sitting straight up, I have maybe like a quarter of an inch of headspace up overhead. So if you've got some taller kids, they may need to sit inside of the passenger seat, or you might need to look at the Escape as an option instead. But I mean, when it comes down to it, if you've got a smaller family, whatever the case may be, young kids, they'll absolutely be able to sit back here comfortably. Or if you've got a fur baby, absolutely we'll be able to get away with getting them to the back seat instead. All right, so starting off, we've got our handle, we've got our window button, and we've also got a little bottle holder there. Now, as we start to move up overhead, we've got a few clips. That's gonna be the same for the driver and the passenger side. Moving down, we've got a pocket for behind the passenger seat, no pocket on the driver, and that's gonna be the same for every trim level of the vehicle. And then moving down, we've got a 150 watt inverter as well. So your typical wall outlet. So if you need to plug some things in, we can absolutely do that. Now there are some limitations, so you're not gonna be plugging in a mini fridge and things like that to the back of the vehicle. And we've got a 60-40 split for our back seat, so 60% driver, 40% passenger. So we can fold down each seat independently if we want to. And then along the very top, we've also got a little tab. We can pull that down in order to reveal our cup holders. Taking a peek along the driver's side door. So we do have our handle there, which does have intelligent access. So we button press in order to be able to lock or unlock the doors. Moving on the inside, we've got our unlock and our lock button. We've got our side view mirror adjusting, our window adjusting buttons, and we've got a little storage space along the driver's side door as well. Now moving up just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we've got a series of different buttons there. So this is gonna be for our fog lamps, figure out what's going on with our running lamps. I honestly just recommend keeping it in the auto setting. And then our dimmer switches for our instrument cluster. Adjusting the driver's seat inside of the vehicle might be a power process, might be a manual process, just depending on which trim level of the vehicle you're looking at. We're in the titanium trim level, which means we've got a fully power seat for the driver's side and then a partial power seat for the passenger side. But adjusting the driver's side seat along our left side, we've got a series of different buttons there. Very first one is actually a little toggle. So we can move that forwards, backwards, and that's gonna be for our lumbar support. Next one over is for the actual seat. We can bring the seat forwards, backwards, we can go up and down with it. And then we've also got one for a backrest, so we can move that one backwards or forwards as necessary. Now, one thing to note, I'm 6 feet tall, so with the seat all the way down and all the way back as far as it'll go, like I've probably got like 4 inches of headspace and then plenty of space for my feet as well. So if you're a little bit taller, you could probably comfortably sit inside of this thing. The big thing is going to be what's happening with the folks in behind you, because if you've got the seat all the way back, the people aren't necessarily going to be able to comfortably get in the back there. Looking at the steering wheel, it is going to be a manual adjust across the entire lineup. So just along the left side by our left knee, we've got a little lever there. Just going to crank that down, and it's telescopic, so we can go in and out, up and down. Once you've got that perfect position, we're just going to take that, click it in order to lock it back into place. Next up, taking a peek at the steering wheel. So lots of things to point out here. Let's start off along the left-hand side. So this one is going to be the up and down switch in order to navigate through that instrument cluster. So we can go up and down as we need to. This is going to be our basic back button. This is going to be our menu button. So let's kind of dive through each section. We'll start off on the trip counter. So we can go between different trips. So we've got our trip 1, trip 2. We can reset the values, etc. Now, while we're on the screen itself, if we actually press the OK button in the middle, that's going to reset our values for us as well. As we move down another screen, so we've got our My View, which same thing, we can go between a few different things. So we've got our digital speedometer, fuel economy, trip, our calming screen. So we've got a few different options there. Navigation, we've got either our My Home, My Previous Destinations, and things like that. Now this one does have the factory navigation built in because we've got that larger Sync 3 screen. Now if you're in the base model, so the S or the SE without that Sync 3 screen, so the SE convenience package, you're not going to have the navigation options whatsoever. But one of the nice things is that yes, we can rely on factory navigation if we want to, but we can also use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay in order to use Waze, Google Maps, and Apple Maps directly through this middle screen. So really, really neat, we've got those options. But moving down a little bit more, we've got our audio, so we can look at our different sources. We've got our AM, FM, Sirius XM. If our phone is connected through Bluetooth, we could also select that. Now, one other thing to note is that if we had a USB stick with MP3s on it, that would also show up as well, which is kind of neat. But moving backwards and back down, we've also got our phone, so we can navigate and look at phone calls, missed calls, things like that, if our phone was connected. Down one more, we've got our advanced settings now. So we've got some information, so we've got our auto start stop. That's the one that's potentially going to kill power to the engine, so we can turn that one off. We'll get to that one in just a second. Intelligent all-wheel drive. So this specific one does have the intelligent all-wheel drive, which is nice because what it's going to do is dynamically shift out the power to whichever wheel is necessary, which is kind of nice. Really useful, I should say, for that wintertime driving. My Key, we do have the option of setting up a My Key. What that's going to do is give you certain limitations for a key fob. Now, one of the benefits there is, let's say if you're going to be lending the car out to a child for the weekend, you don't want them to go past a certain speed, you want to play a prank on a spouse, whatever the case may be, you've got a ton of different options there. Looking at our tire pressure, we can see what's going on with the tire pressure, and then we've also got our oil life, so figure out what's going on with our oil life reset as well. Moving back and back one more time, we've also got our basic sort of display. So we've got our language, English, Spanish, or French. We can move between liters per 100, miles per gallon, etc. Celsius and Fahrenheit, we've got a few different measurement options there as well. Driver assistance settings, so we've got a few different options there. So the blind spot system actually lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. So if we look over, you can see that orange light going there, so just kind of make it out, but that lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle for us. Cross-traffic alert. If there's a vehicle that's, as we're backing up, that's coming perpendicular to us, we're going to get a little warning. And then our rear parking aid, so that beeping that we get as we go to back up, that's going to let us know as we get closer to an obstacle. And we've also got the option of turning that one off if we want to. Moving back again, we've got some basics for vehicle settings. So our auto engine off. So we've got the option of toggling that one on or off if we'd like it. That's the one that, like I said, is going to potentially kill power to the engine. Moving down, we've got our basics for chimes. We've got our lighting, so our auto lamp delay. So when we go to lock the vehicle, do the lights stay on for how long? I think it's 10, 20, 120 seconds, or do they just automatically go off? Moving down a bit more, we've got our lock, so our auto unlock. Mislock chirp is one of the nice ones to keep on, because if you go to lock the car and not all of the doors are properly shut, you're going to get a double chirp letting you know that you haven't shut the doors properly. Remote unlock, when we go to unlock the car from the fob, do all doors become unlocked, or is it just the driver's door? Moving down, we've got our switch inhibitor as well. And then we've got a remote start. So the vehicle itself doesn't have remote start on the fob, but it does have remote start built in. And that's all part of that Ford Pass app as well. So we can set up Ford Pass on our cell phone in order to be able to remote start directly through our cell phone. We can turn the system off completely, or if we're remote starting, what happens? Do we let the vehicle determine what the cabin temperature should be, or is it based off of our last setting? Our seat into our wheel as well. So our heated seats, do they come on? And then duration of the start, 5, 10, or 15 minutes. And then we've got our wipers, so our courtesy wipe, what that's going to do is if we've got our wipers going and then it goes to stop, it'll wipe one more time to clear away any excess liquid. Our rain sensing wipers, that's automatically going to turn the wipers on as rain hits the windshield. One thing to note, definitely make sure you turn that one off, I should say, if you're going into a car wash, otherwise it's going to start going crazy. And then your last one is your reverse wiper. So do we want that one turning on when we've got the wipers going and we put the car into reverse? And that is going to be the basics of the settings there. And we've got the My Key that we can set that one up as well. And that's the basics of the instrument cluster screen. As we move down, we've got our basic cruise control. So on, off, set, Off to the right side, we can skip between songs or radio stations. We can answer or hang up on a phone call, and then we can increase or decrease the volume, and then we can also press this button for our voice command prompt. So voice command prompt, we've got the option of, we can change songs, radio stations. We can also find an address.
I didn't get that.
And things like that by pressing this button. So rather than having to fiddle with the tuning rocker, we can just change the station using that instead. All right, now as we start to move forward a little bit, so as you can see there, we do have our high beam flash. Now, one thing to note, when we're in the auto setting, so when we're either in off or auto, the high beams actually aren't gonna permanently stay locked on. We do need to be in the on setting instead in order to be able to permanently flash those high beams on. Moving off to the other side, so we do have rain sensing wipers. How sensitive is it to hitting the rain that's hitting the windshield? And then off to the side there, we also can turn our rear wipers on as well. So let's take a peek, rear wipers, and there they go. We're going to pull in towards us in order to get the front windshield wiper fluid going. We're going to push away for the rear. Now this is the Sync 3 media screen. It's an 8-inch screen. It's going to be available in some trim levels. So in the SES and the Titanium, this is going to come standard. It is available optionally inside of the SE trim level of the vehicle. Now, one thing to note, we do have factory navigation there, but we do have the option of using either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto to use Waze, Google Maps, and Apple Maps through this middle screen. Now this is the way that the screen itself is going to look as a default. We've got our map summary there. We can turn our audio on or off if we'd like to, and we've also got the option of adding in a phone. We'll get to that phone in just a second. Now, starting off along the very bottom there, so with our audio tab, we've got a few options. So we can jump between AM, FM, Sirius XM, and Bluetooth. We can do a browse. We can also do a direct tune. So if we want to tune to a different station, we can go that way. We've got a tuning rocker, but best yet is using the voice command button on the steering wheel. So a ton of different options there. I love this song. Let's do a quick audio test. Dave Grohl, killer, love it. All right, so audio is incredible. Now this is the Titanium trim level of the vehicle, so we've got a Bang & Olufsen sound system. The lower trim levels will not have quite the same sound as this one does, but still nice at the end of the day. Now if we've tuned to a station, we want to save it as a preset, all we're going to do is tune. We're just going to press and hold any of the available options, and preset is now saved. Adding a phone to the vehicle is a very straightforward process. So I'll walk you through going through an iPhone and an Android device here. We're going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So all we're going to do is toggle our phone. So we're just going to add phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
And then on our phone, we're just going to make sure that Bluetooth is turned on, and we're just waiting for EcoSport to show up at the very bottom there. Perfect. So Ford EcoSport. So we're just going to press the button there.
Confirm that the pin displayed on sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
Okay, so we want to make sure that the numbers match up, and in this case they do, so we're going to hit pair and yes. Okay.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Perfect. So allow contacts and favorites to sync. Yes, we want to do that. We hit allow. Now, a couple things here. So 911 assist, we want to make sure that we turn that one on. And the reason why is because if we're ever in an accident and our phone is connected, it's automatically going to dial 911 for us. And then auto download our contacts as well. So whenever a new contact is added, we want to make sure that the car downloads that as well. So as you can see, we've got my recent calls, contacts, my phone, and a number of other things. So if we go back to the home screen now, perfect. So as you can see, we've got my phone down there. So very, very simple in order to be able to do that. Now we can press the voice command prompt on the steering wheel in order to make phone calls as well, which is great. Now we do have the option of setting up Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So setting up Apple CarPlay is pretty straightforward. We're just going to take the USB cable and we're going to plug it into any of the available USB ports. The struggle's real. Perfect. Step number 2, we're going to take that USB cable, we're just going to plug it into our phone, and we're going to give this a second. So Apple CarPlay lets you use your phone in a way. We do have to continue in order for that to work, and we do have to agree to the privacy terms and conditions. And we're just going to wait, so we just need to finish setting up CarPlay, so I just need to unlock my phone. Boom, unlock, and 3, 2, 1, we are connected. Now, we do have to select this as well, so allow CarPlay with Sync 3 while the phone is locked. We want to make sure that we do that. As you can see, we've got my phone, we've got my maps, we've got my messages, podcasts, we've got Google Maps, Waze, and things like that. So we've got a ton of different options there, which I think is great. Because yes, we do have factory navigation, but we also do have the option of jumping into CarPlay and using any of these different map sources instead. So if you have a preference of using Waze rather than the default system, you've got that option, which is kind of neat. Now, one of the nice things about CarPlay is that we do have the option of changing the screen around a little bit. So if we go into our settings, we click on CarPlay, we find our vehicle, We can go to customize the tray, and I don't know, maybe you love listening to your podcasts. We can move that to the top. And if you prefer to use Google Maps as well, we move that up. So as you can see there, we can really adjust what's going on. If you're never going to use Google Maps, we can delete it, moves it to the very bottom as well. Now, if for whatever reason you're playing around with the layout, you don't like what you've done with the thing, all you do is press the reset button, reset layout, and that's going to bring us back to our factory default screen instead. Just go inside, and as you can see, we are now fully set back up to our default setting again. Now, if we need to get back to the home screen, we're just going to press the forward button there, and that brings us back to the home screen. If we want to make sure that we're charging the phone up without being connected to CarPlay, we just go to our settings, we navigate to Apple CarPlay, and then we can remove my phone, and then we're going to disconnect and then as you can see, it is now fully disconnected. We disable CarPlay now, and all of a sudden, we're now using factory navigation instead, while my phone is still connected and charging. And we can also just pull it off in order to be able to completely remove this thing. And moving back, the phone is now fully disconnected from CarPlay, but we are still connected there. So we hit connect, and 3, 2, 1, and we are fully connected back again. So very straightforward from that perspective. Now, if we ever want to remove a phone, all we're going to do is go to settings. We're going to go to other screen. There we go. We're going to go to our phone, and we've got the option of viewing devices. We can look at my phone there, and we can either disconnect it or we can completely remove it. Setting up an Android device is literally the exact same process. So all we're going to do on our phone, just jump into our Bluetooth settings. And same thing, all we're going to do is hit add Bluetooth device.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Perfect. So Ford EcoSport is shown up, and we're just going to click in order to connect.
Confirm that the pin displayed on sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
All right, and we want to make sure that the numbers match up, which they do. So we're going to hit OK and yes.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Perfect. So we've connected. We want to allow access to messages, yes. And we can set it as a favorite if we want to. Now, unless you've got more than one phone set up, this is not going to show up. So I've already set the iPhone up, which is why this is showing. And same thing, auto-download contacts. Yes, we want to do that. So we jump into our phone. All of a sudden, we've got the same thing. We've got the Galaxy connected. We've got our phone voice service, and we've got a number of other things. So we jump into our settings for a second, jump into phone, view devices. As you can see, we do have both of those phones connected, and we can easily toggle between one or the other. Now, setting up Android Auto is literally the exact same process. So all we're going to do is take our USB cable, we're going to plug it into any of the available USB ports. Step 1. Step number 2, we're just going to take the opposite end of that cable, and we're just going to plug it into the phone. Boom. And 3, 2, 1, vehicle data. Boom. Okay, there we go, Android Auto. So we're going to continue on there. It's okay to the diagnostics, and we're going to hit next on our phone. We're going to agree to the terms and conditions, and 3, 2, 1, and we are connected. Look at this. We are fully connected. It literally is that simple. So as you can see there, we've got our basic settings. We jump back into our home screen there. We've got podcast, phone, we've got my weather, messages, and a number of other things. So it really is that simple to be able to set up Android Auto. Now, very similar to the Apple side of things, if we go to search for Android Auto on our phone, we're going to have some more advanced settings. So we go to Android Auto. So you can see there we've got the connected vehicle. We can customize the launcher, so if we have a preference for what's showing up where, we've got that option. We're just going to press, and we can drag and drop as necessary. And we're going to move back. We've got our Google detection, we've got our Google Assistant, we can show weather, and a number of other things. So one thing to note is that with the customizable launcher, it's not going to work the same as the Apple side. So we can move it as necessary, but we actually have to restart Android Auto in order for the changes to actually reset. So that's one thing to note, but very straightforward. We've got our Google Assistant there. We can see our notification center, and we can also press the forward button in order to bring us back to the home screen again. Now, very similar to the Apple side, if we go into CarPlay, we can toggle off Android Auto if we want to, and we can remove the phone. So my phone is still charging up, and we just unplug from there if we want to fully disconnect, but we're still connected over Bluetooth. Now, in order to be able to disconnect the phone, very straightforward. We just jump into our phone, view devices, we can select, we can disconnect it. If you've got more than one connected, you can make it the favorite, or you can simply remove it. So as you can see there, 3, 2, 1, and I am now fully disconnected. Jumping back in, I can also remove it from there. So I can fully remove, and I'm now removed. And same thing, let's remove the iPhone and both phones, and are fully disconnected from the vehicle. Next up, jumping into navigation. So we do have factory navigation, so we've got that flexibility. We can easily search for an address if we'd like to, or we can also, so if we start typing in, we can search for GPS coordinates. So we would just enter in the coordinates if we wanted to go that route. We can start typing in an address, and it's predictive, so it's going to finish up our text. So we just select. And as you can see there, we can navigate, so we can save it as a favorite, or So I've actually saved it as a favorite. It'll take a second
Obey
to save.
traffic laws, be alert, and use voice commands while driving.
Perfect.
Please proceed to the highlighted route, and then the route guidance will start.
All right, so as you can see there, so we're in favorite. So if we actually click on the favorite there, as you can see, we're inside. We just hit our edit button at the very top there now. We can change the name. So that's a really cool thing, because if we wanted to, we can select something unique. And that's beneficial because if we press the voice command prompt on our steering wheel, we've got the option of saying, navigate home, navigate to work, navigate to such and such person's house. So we've got a lot of flexibility when it comes down to it there. Now we've saved an address, so moving back, as you can see there, so we're currently navigating to one. We can easily cancel out the route if we wanted to, use simply by pressing the X along the top there. The route's now canceled. Jumping into our menu there, we've got our screen traffic, we've got a lot of advanced navigation settings. So basic map preferences, we've got the option of showing things like our 3D model, breadcrumbs, point of interest icons. The breadcrumbs, I want you to think of Goldilocks. No, not Goldilocks. Which one am I thinking? Hansel and Gretel. That's what I'm thinking of. So Hansel and Gretel, because if we've got the breadcrumbs turned on, as we start to drive around different routes, it's actually going to drop little breadcrumbs letting us know where we've traveled to. So that's a pretty neat setting. We've got our route preferences. So do we want to show the fastest, shortest, and the most eco-friendly route? Do we want to avoid things like freeways, toll roads, tunnels, things like that? And that's going to dynamically update our map based on our preferences. Ooh, last one, navigation preferences, our prompts. When we've got an upcoming turn, do we want it to be the voice and tone, voice, or just the tone? So tons of options when it comes down to it. Close, out, back, and let's cancel that out. Perfect. We've got a few other options, so we can see previous destinations that we've gone to. We can look at our favorites, point of interest, and then we can also navigate to our home or our work address as well. Moving down, we've got our basic app screen. So if our phone was connected, certain apps will work through this middle screen. We've got to select it through this way instead. But we do have a few options there. Now, if our phone was connected, you had something like LiveX Live or Pandora, so the radio apps, you'd be able to use those directly through this middle screen. Moving into our settings, we've got some basics for sound, so we can change the treble, mid-range, bass, balance, fade, and a few other things. We've got our clock, so we can change minutes, hours, AM, PM, 12, 24-hour mode, etc. Bluetooth, we can look at our connections. We can disable Bluetooth if we wanted to. We can jump into add a phone. Looking at the radio, so we've got a few different options there. The preset pages, I always recommend going to the max, so your 6 preset pages. And the reason why I'll show you in just a second as it updates. 3, 2, 1, and we are updated. We go back to the audio section there, and all of a sudden we've got 30 individual presets now. So really useful if you're a heavy audiophile. You know, I love listening to a lot of different stations. Now, one thing, if we jump into Sirius XM for a second, and we jump back into our settings again, we've now got a Sirius XM button instead. So we've got a few different options there with same preset pages. We've got a number of different things. So if we have a preference, we want to parental lock things out, set different categories, we want to lock different channels out, etc. We've got the flexibility to be able to do that. Switching back into our AM, FM, etc. It's just going to jump us back to radio again. Moving into our navigation, we've already looked at those preferences earlier. We've got some basic for mobile apps. We've got our general settings. We've got our language, so English, Spanish, or French, Celsius, Fahrenheit, kilometers or miles, the beeping there. If that beeping drives you nuts, you can turn it off if you really want to. We can reset, so if you're selling the vehicle, you can bring it back to our factory defaults again. Moving over, we've got our 911 assist, Wi-Fi. So the Wi-Fi and the automatic updates, I do recommend turning both of those on. And the reason why is because if the vehicle senses that there's an available update, it's automatically going to update it for us. So really beneficial to make sure you're always running the latest software inside of the vehicle. Ford Pass Connect, so the vehicle itself is equipped with an onboard modem, so you've got the flexibility there of setting that one up very easily. So if we click on Ford Pass Connect, we can set it up as a hotspot as well. So we can connect up to 10 devices to the vehicle, but we do need a data-only plan through our cell phone provider. Apple CarPlay, we can remove my phone there because it was connected earlier. Once we remove all available devices, it's going to completely disappear, but when we go to plug things back in again, those options will show up again. We've got some basics for the vehicle as well. So moving in, we've got our camera settings and our serial number. Our display, so as big and as bright as this display is, if you don't like it, you can turn it off completely, press it to bring it back to life, or you can do a calming screen, which is going to be just the date and time instead. And then same thing, press in order to bring that one back to life. And jumping back inside, so for our display, we can change out a few different things. So we've got our different modes, so our auto, daytime, etc. So this is the daytime mode right now. We do have the option of permanently locking in the daytime, permanently locking in the nighttime. That one's going to be a matter of personal preference. Now, I personally love the look of that nighttime mode, so I would always keep it in the nighttime one, but it is a matter of preference. You can go one way or the other, or you can just set it to auto, and the vehicle is going to flip you between the daytime or the nighttime mode, just depending on how bright it is outside. And then moving back from there, we've got our voice control. So voice control, we've gone in advanced mode. I want you to listen to something for a second.
Please say a command.
94.9.
Tuning to FM 94.9.
All right, so it's changed the radio station for us, but it told us that it was going to do that. When we've got the advanced mode on, we just won't get as many notifications. Phone confirmation, do you want to call such and such person, yes or no? And then our voice command list. So this is the actual command list when we press the voice command prompt on the steering wheel. Do you want that to show up, yes or no? We've got the valet mode, which means that we can lock the vehicle out. So lock the screen out, I should say. You enter in a 4-digit number. So if you're valet parking, just to lock the screen out, you have to re-enter that 4-digit number in order to unlock things. And then we've got our ambient light with a few different color choices. So if you've got a preference between different colors, you've got that option there as well. And it's going to show up at different parts of the vehicle. Moving back out, and that is going to be the basics of the Sync 3 screen. Right now, as we start to move down, so we've got our volume rocker, so we can easily adjust that. We can press into turning our audio on and off. We can do a tune this way to change the station, or we can do a direct tune through the screen. But honestly, the best bet is just to press that button on the steering wheel and just use your voice instead. We can change between songs or stations, play, pause, hot button press for our audio settings. And then we can also do a calming screen, or we can turn the screen off completely as well. Button press again in order to bring it back to life. Moving back down, we've got our 4-way blinkers, basics for fan control. We are just single zone climate control, so we can adjust our fan settings, turn on and off. Basic climate control settings. Titanium trim level of the vehicle does have the heated steering wheel, and then we've also got the heated seats there as well. Moving down, we've got a hot button press to turn the auto start stop system on or off, and we can turn traction control on or off as well. Moving off to the other side, we've got a few USB ports, as well as a traditional cigarette port, so a 12-volt port there as well. As we move down a little bit more, we've got our park reverse neutral drive and then the sport mode, which means it's going to hang on to gears a tiny little bit longer. And we do have the option just on the right side, of the left side, I should say, of the shifter, in order to be able to change gears out manually if we want to. Moving down a tiny little bit more, we do also have our parking brake, so we can turn that one on, we can crank that up if we need to. We've got our ambient light there, so we set that one up earlier. So ambient light's going to show up in the cup holders. It's going to show up just under the shoe there, so as you can see. So a few different spots, and then just in the door handle there, we can just kind of make out that blue lighting there as well. So nice kind of highlights there. And as we start to move down, so we do have our cup holders, we've got a little storage spot, and just along the middle there, we do have a tiny little tray, removable, so we can crank this thing up in order to give ourselves a little bit more space down there. Click in order to lock it back into place. Now as we move up, so as you can see there, we do have an auto dimming rear view mirror. That's going to be standard on some trim levels of the vehicle. We've also got our switch for our cabin lights, so we can turn the lights on, off, etc. And now this one does have a mini roof. So if you take a look there, pop that thing open, and as you can see, there's a tiny little roof, just opens things up nicely. It's the same style roof that we're going to find inside of the Bronco Sport. And as we start to move forward, we've got the basics for the control for that roof. We've got our sunglasses holder. We've also got our vanity mirror, no lights unfortunately, but we've got a little card holder along the top. Crank this thing out, and we cannot move this thing, so it's actually locked into place there. We can click it in order to lock it back in. All right, next up, let's take this thing out for a spin on the road and see how it actually handles. Now this is technically the larger engines of the two that's available for the EcoSport, because we've got either a 1-liter turbocharged engine or this 2-liter naturally aspirated, so the non-turbocharged engine. At the end of the day, the turbocharged engine isn't quite as powerful as the naturally aspirated, so you're definitely going to have a little bit more power with the naturally aspirated. So it's going to ultimately depend on you and which trim level of the vehicle you go for. Because if you look at one of the base trim levels, so let's say you look at the SE or the SES, it's typically going to come with the 1-liter turbocharged engine, versus surprisingly in the S base as well as in the Titanium, you're in that 2-liter instead. So it's going to depend on, are you towing anything, because you'll have more towing capacity out of those larger engines. It's going to depend on you. What are you ultimately doing with this thing? But one thing about the EcoSport is that it's an entry level, it's a budget vehicle. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit cheaper, it's a surprisingly good option, and especially if you want to go with a Ford, because if you're looking for a Ford for a smaller vehicle, if you're looking for a sedan, you're essentially out of luck. So Ford's gotten rid of all of their sedans, so with the exception of the Mustang, but this is literally going to be the only option that's available for you if you're looking for a smaller entry-level vehicle. So, tons of different options when it comes down to it. The overall ride comfort, so this is the Titanium, so we've got a nice leather seat inside of the vehicle. It's comfortable. Like sizing wise, like I'm 6 feet tall. I've got like a surprising, like almost 3 inches of headspace up overhead. So, and the seat's not even down all the way. So there's plenty of space when it comes down to it. I mean, if you're looking for something to get you from A to B and that's it, the EcoSport's a good option. If you're looking for something with a little bit more pep, a little bit more space, you could absolutely look at the Escape as an option instead. So, but which one you go for is ultimately, as I say it all the time, is it's going to depend on you. What are your own personal needs? And the big one, I guess, is what is your budget? Because if your budget is $20,000, $30,000, like, you might be able to get away with an Escape, but the EcoSport is absolutely going to fit within your budget. So. And it is nice, like, having this gear shifter as well, because inside of the Escape, there is no gear shifter. It's actually just like a little rotary dial instead. So having that physical shifter where I can hang onto something as I'm going, it is useful. And the big reason why, like, I come from driving a 6-speed, so like I'm always used to having my hand resting there. And it's nice because the armrest, like, it's nice for the elbow as well. On the left side, like if I was driving with my left hand, or with my right hand, I should say, left hand is nice, left arm is kind of nice, it's comfortable, it's, you know, the rest on the side there is nice. All right, here we go. This is gonna be the test. So taking her on the highway, I'm gonna open it up a teeny little bit and see how it handles. But it's not broken in, so I'm not gonna force it and not gonna gun it too much, unfortunately, but okay. It's not that bad. It's fairly, it's nimble. That's one of the nice things. And this vehicle is actually super popular in Europe. And the reason why is because of how small it is. It's nice and nimble at the end of the day. And it's interesting, there actually is a diesel. Okay, here we go. Oh, come on. You can do it, little car. All right, all right. At the end of the day, it's a 2-liter naturally aspirated. It's a little lackluster when it comes down to the acceleration. My foot was almost down and it was taking a little bit, like 0 to 60 in, you know, a good 20 seconds or so. It wasn't that bad. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go a little bit more. Like almost redlining it, going 100 as I put my foot down. 100 kilometers an hour, not miles per hour. All right, so that it wasn't too bad. At the end of the day, like, again, if you're looking for something to get you just from A to B, the EcoSport is a good option. If you're looking for something A to B with a bit more power, definitely recommend checking out the Escape, because realistically, you can get a front-wheel drive Escape S, so the base model, for about the same price as some of the higher trim levels for the EcoSport. So it's going to depend on which trim level and kind of what you're looking at from a pricing perspective. But even right now, so in Canada, there actually is no charge all-wheel drive for the Escape, so you get a $1,500 rebate there as well. So realistically, like, if you're looking at a $30-ish thousand car, the Escape all-wheel drive might be a slightly better option for you. But again, I say it again and again, what are you looking for? Okay, nimbleness, let's see. Here we go. Okay, so responsive, the nimbleness is still, the nimbleness is at least there, so we can kind of get around some obstacles fairly easily if we need to. Now it is interesting because this is available either front wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, just depending on which trim level of the vehicle you look at. But again, like in Canada, if you're in those northern states, or if you're somewhere where you're typically going to be getting a little bit more snow, definitely recommend looking at the 4-wheel drive option. Just going to get better traction during the winter time. And as always, just make sure you throw those winter tires on there as well, just for a teeny little bit of better performance in the winter. And it is interesting because there are different engine choices that are available depending on which part of the world you're looking at. Because if you look at Europe, there's actually a 1-liter diesel engine that's available as well, which is kind of neat. Not available in North America, unfortunately. And then even when we look at different features like that back, looking at the tire inflator kit, that is going to be standard across the entire trim level, pretty much I think anywhere in the world. I think it was back in 2018, there was the option for having the mini spare tire, and it was actually mounted on the actual liftgate, the trunk door instead. It's kind of neat. It was kind of like a Jeep-esque feature, but it's no longer available. You can't get that anymore in the EcoSport, unfortunately. Okay, here we go. Little roundabout. Tell my Canadian side's coming out. Okay. So the steering, the nimbleness is actually kind of nice. Because of the size of the vehicle, it's nice and small. Built on a fairly small frame, so it's a car frame with an SUV body, so a micro crossover. That is the laziest way to hang a dealer plate. That's amazing. Hold on. I want to try to speed up so you can see this. That is the laziest way to put a dealer plate on. Look at that. Look at that. That is hilarious. Love it. Love it. Oh, that's good. Makes me laugh. Okay. So, I mean, overall first impressions, one of the interesting things, every time I've stopped, and it just happened again right now, the auto start stop. So the one that kills power to the engine, that's happened every single time I've stopped the car. So it literally is up to the vehicle when it decides to do it. You do at least need to have the vehicle heated up in order for it to be able to do that start stop feature. Couple things to note, if you've got the air conditioning running full blast, if you've got the heat going, etc., the engine may not turn off, but we do have the option pressing that button in order to bring everything back to life again. So we can temporarily disable it if we wanted to. And that sunroof up overhead, like that is definitely like Bronco Sport-esque territory, where it's not a huge, like the twin panel-less sunroof that we'd find inside of the Escape, but it's still a decent, it's a sunroof at the end of the day. So if you'd like to open things up, now that is going to be standard in the titanium trim level of the vehicle, and then in the SES, I believe as well. When you get into the SE, you need to get something called the SE Convenience Package in order to be able to get that sunroof. Oh, turning radius is actually pretty nice. That's not bad. Okay. All right. Oh. All right, well, folks, that was a look at the 2021 Ford EcoSport. What did you think? It's a nice, nimble little car if you're looking for something entry-level at a fairly low price point. But if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Think about sharing it with your social networks. And if you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. And until I see you next time, make sure you stay safe.